Hello, friends. Welcome aboard the Round Trip Stories podcast, where we share stories of moving around the world and back again, reflecting on the lessons we've learned along the way. My name is Melissa.
And my name is Tracy, and we're so glad you're joining us for today's episode. Welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Marie Suazo, host of the podcast Talks with a TCK Friend, and author of Tales of a Diplomat's Daughter. Originally from the Philippines, Marie grew up in South Korea and Egypt because she was part of a diplomat family. After college in Seoul, Korea, she moved back with her family and eventually returned to the Philippines. Not only was it difficult moving into a monocultural environment, but it was also challenging living with her family as an adult TCK. So buckle your seatbelts and make sure your tray tables and seats are in their upright positions as part 2 of Marie's round trip story gets ready for takeoff. Okay, everybody, we are here with Marie Suazo for part 2 of her interview. Marie is a third culture kid, somebody who grew up for a portion of her childhood overseas outside her parents and her passport country. Marie also happens to be a podcaster, and she is a writer as well. Marie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on again.
And we want to hear kind of a quick summary of your backstory, just in case somebody's joining us for part 2 only. But make sure you go and listen to part 1 because it's amazing.
Sure thing. So just a quick summary of my background. I'm originally from the Philippines, but I grew up in Korea and in Egypt. And I went back to Seoul, South Korea for college and in grad school. And I moved around because my mom was a diplomat, and she was assigned to these different countries. And as a diplomat, you know, if the government says go, you go. Mm-hmm. And our stints usually was 6 years abroad, 2 to 3 years back, and 6 years abroad again. And so that's why I moved to these different places.
Yeah. And so after college, did you move directly back to the Philippines straight after college?
Oh, no. So I tried to get my master's degree, which, long story short, I didn't end up finishing. I was studying Christian counseling at the time, but due to a family emergency, I was called back to Canada with my family. And then after a little bit in Canada, we all moved back to the Philippines.
So your parents were in Canada on assignment when
Yes.
you went to college in Korea?
Well, not during that time. So while I was in college, they were in the Philippines for a couple of years, and then they moved to Oman. And then after Oman, they moved to Canada. So they did 3 years in Oman, and then a couple of years in Canada. I just went on vacation whenever, because I was still living in Korea, but I went on vacation twice a year to see them wherever they were.
Oh, nice.
And so go ahead and tell us about what you're doing these days and where you live now.
But as you mentioned, Tracy, I do have a book and a podcast. My book is called Tales of a Diplomat's Daughter, and I'm hoping the second one will come out sometime this year.
Yay!
And who knows, maybe by the time this is released, it's already out. We'll see. Fingers crossed. And I'm also a podcaster. I love talking to other third culture kids about their stories and giving them the space to process and grieve some of the things that they've gone through. And my little quote for my podcast, I guess like my little mantra, is that you are not alone and that there's always hope. And I really want other third culture kids to know that. So what I'm up to right now, writing my second book and still podcasting.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you for creating that space where people can share and know that they're not alone. One of the goals of our podcast is also to help people when they're repatriating from living abroad. And we want to encourage people, right? So they can know that they're not alone, so that they can be fruitful and use all the gifts that they've been given, these treasures of lessons living abroad and being able to be bridges and relate to other cultures and being able to thrive where they are.
So tell us a little bit about that transition, moving, whichever part of it you want to talk about moving back to the Philippines. What was that transition like? Tell us a story about that.
Um, I think I'll give a little bit of a comparison from when I was a kid, when I was a middle schooler that moved to the Philippines for the first time, where I had absolutely no idea what it was going to be like to as an adult. So just a little bit of a heads up. In between that time when I was in middle school and when I moved back as an adult, I went on vacation to see my family. So I think I went at least like 3 or 4 times while they were living in the Philippines. And so I had a better idea of, what, where they were living, what to expect. But the initial move for the very first time when I was a middle schooler, I remember thinking, like, I can't believe this is how people live. Like, I
Mhm.
remember thinking how difficult it was, where it's like in Korea, we also lived, it wasn't a complete small town because Seoul is very metropolitan, but at least in our little area, I was allowed to go get a snack. Like, I was allowed to leave the house, go to the grocery store, go to the ice cream store, go to the stationery store, as long as my parents knew. Um, in the Philippines, it's like I'm not allowed to talk because my accent gives me away. They're going to jack up prices. Who knows what they're going to do to me? And so
Mhm.
my parents always encouraged me to keep my mouth shut when I was in the Philippines, because I was just a dead giveaway that I was not from there.
Hmm.
And so just like even the drastic difference and also the language, like in Korea, I spoke Korean fluently and I spoke English fluently as I went to school. But coming to the Philippines and where I could speak neither, where I wasn't allowed to necessarily speak that because it was either socially not acceptable in school or something along those lines where you're not popular if you speak this way or whatever. And I actually made friends with Koreans during this time.
Yeah.
So because that was my comfort zone. And it was just so difficult because I really felt like people just didn't get me or understood what I had to say or where I was coming from. And I just felt so isolated and alone. And not saying there weren't nice people, like there were nice people and I got to talk to them, but I think to the core of my being, I was like, this is not where I thrive.
Yeah.
Um, to not be able to speak Korean or English, I felt like I couldn't breathe. Like I would give this explanation every single time I would
Yeah.
go to the Philippines for vacation and then I'd go back to Korea for school. It's like, I can't believe I wasn't breathing for a month because I wasn't speaking Korean or I wasn't
Hmm.
eating
Yeah.
Korean food. So I feel like and now I have the words and the vocabulary to describe that, but I didn't back then as a kid. And
Mhm.
Hmm.
so that was really difficult as a kid, but now repatriating. Oh, actually, let me move back. So when I was a kid, there was also this layer of expectation from everybody else, whether it's extended family or even church leaders, things like that, where it's like, why don't you speak Filipino? You're Filipino. Like, why didn't you learn it? It was just like this expectation of like, why aren't you what we think you should be? Kind of
Mhm.
mindsets.
Mhm.
And that was for a child to say like, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like to me. It's like, well, you don't act this way. You're not good enough, And that's heartbreaking.
And as if it was your fault, right?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that because I didn't know how to deal with that. And my parents also didn't know how to deal with that. So they always took me to McDonald's because we had McDonald's in Korea. And I
Mhm.
always wanted apple pie because it was just something very dear to me. And so just like back then, people didn't know what Korea was, like compared to now where it's like Squid Games and K-pop and like everybody and their mamas are traveling to Seoul every year.
Yep.
Very different. Like I remember I had a cousin that basically this is in the book. He goes like, "Korean, go home." Like he said that to me.
Oh.
And it's like in my head, I was like, even if I wanted to, I couldn't go back. Like I didn't have that option. I didn't have that choice. Um,
Yeah.
so that was really difficult as a kid.
Yeah.
Transition wise, like that was no fun. And it's like I felt like no one was really helping me or no one really understood what I was going through and that I had to suck it up and just move
Mhm.
on. Compared to now transitioning as an adult. And this is, having studied Christian counseling, having gotten therapy myself, like I finally am able to kind of put the puzzle pieces together in my life in where because I'm so uniquely, all these different cultures, there are just certain needs that I need that somebody who's monocultural might not need. For example, I need to eat Korean food. And not just Korean food that people think is great, like those, Korean barbecue on the grill kind of thing. Like, I need things that you probably can't get, like that I have to make it myself because it reminds me of my childhood. Or when
Yeah.
people from back home in Korea coming to visit me, I make specific requests for like traditional Korean snacks that you can't get here. And that is just something that I had to accept about myself that makes me feel like I'm taking care of myself. Or
Yeah.
like, I need to hop on a phone call with a friend and just speak Korean straight for like 2 hours just so that I feel like I can breathe.
Yeah.
And yeah, like these are things that I never got to explore as a kid because I felt like I was in survival mode so often, because I didn't know how to deal with these transitions. No one was helping me. I don't want to say no one because, there are other people like church and things like that. But like, I felt like as a whole, it was just different because I don't think people really understood the unique needs of a TCK.
Right. Right.
Wow, Marie, it's so much that you have just shared. We really appreciate that. And when you said, I need to breathe, I need to speak Korean. So how often now do you get on the phone and speak Korean for 2 hours straight?
Maybe not 2 hours straight, but like I still pretty frequently, like maybe not on a weekly basis, but pretty close to that.
Mhm.
And now that there's like Netflix and things like that, like just knowing that I can hear the language and it's just like
Hmm.
really soothing. It's like a safe space.
Yeah.
It's just helpful overall.
Is there anything else that you want to add that was hard about the repatriation process?
Yeah, I think what I'll add is that living with your family as an adult with your own different values, I think is hard enough, period. Just period.
Mhm.
Monoculturally, all the more as a third culture kid, because you see the world a lot differently from your family and your parents. And the thing is, sometimes it can feel very isolating being the
Yeah.
only one that thinks that way and
Yeah.
everybody else thinking a different way. And even with my brothers, like they spent a lot more time in the Philippines than I did because they ended up going to school here longer. They were here in high school, that kind of thing.
That
And
makes a big difference.
yeah, and they had a church community here. And so they feel like, for me, it's like Egypt and Korea where I had like this amazing church community. To them, it's sometimes the Philippines. Um, and so I don't have that kind of relationship with this country that they do. And so that's why I feel like sometimes it's so isolating, especially because I've been to therapy. Like I've become a lot more self-aware. And to them, that's like if it doesn't show, like, for example, if your behavior is not a certain way, then you need to act this way in order for you for their understanding of you to be okay. And
Mhm.
as a TCK, like I can't do that. Like I can't and I believe that that's their truth and that's what they believe in and that's their values and experiences no matter how long they've been on this earth. But like they also don't understand me. And even though there's truth to what they're saying, I can't fully accept that because I need to live my own life. Um, I can't cater to being liked by my family just because they have a certain view of how I should be. And I think that's like
Mhm.
the biggest thing. It's, I think, just adults, right? Like growing up as adults in your own understanding and having your own mindset, like that's difficult to even share with your family if they've never been through any of that stuff. They're still in their own understanding, which could be valid based on their experiences. Like I'm not saying that what they're saying is wrong or anything like that, but like it's valid based on their experiences. It's just not valid based on mine.
Mhm. Mhm. So you lived with your parents when you first moved back to the Philippines, and how long did you stay living with them?
I just moved out a week ago, so
That's so quite a few
like
years. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And so my personal journey right now is rediscovering what is important to me and why
Yeah.
I chose to move out, why I chose to, just kind of separate myself and also breathe from
Mhm.
hearing all these different things from my family. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, just a lot of cultural clashes, and I'm not the first TCK that I know of that has had to go through something similar just because they grew up very differently from their family.
Yeah. Hmm.
I was just gonna say, I know it's a lot.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. That's, I think, a really helpful thing for both, TCKs and for TCK parents to be aware of that, we've talked about that more in the first half of your interview about having a different culture or cultural, understanding and worldview than your parents, even though you've all had the global part. So if that connects with you and you didn't listen to the first episode, go back and listen to our part 1 of our interview with Marie. So tell us what helped with your transition and resettling to the Philippines. Tell us about something that has been helpful for you.
I think discovering other TCKs, I think that's like the biggest thing. It's where you don't have to over explain yourself. When I try to, so like I moved in with a childhood friend from Egypt where when I start over explaining, she's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Like that makes sense. Like, and I'm just like, what? Like I don't have to
Mhm.
prove anything to you. Um,
Mhm.
or like having similar mindsets with other TCKs who basically went through what I was going through and having to leave their family because they just needed to be their own person. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I think those are some of the things that I found helpful, and I think interning with TCK training has been so helpful because not only do they support you and are encouraging and they pray with you and all that, they also give very practical things, practical data of what I'm going through. So I remember I first came to TCK training just being like super people pleasing, like this is a job after all, like I'm an intern, I need to do the work.
Mhm.
And they're like, you don't have to feel like you have to do everything. Like, feel free to voice your concern. And I was like, to voice my concern, I'm allowed
Like,
to
wait,
do that.
what?
Like before it's like manager will like scream, scream their head off if you
Uh,
don't do it their own way. Like I was in corporate for a bit. So that was kind
mhm.
of like the residue of what I went through. Um, and so to have them just say, like, as a TCK, this is possibly what you're going through, like this transition, like, here are some of the things that would help. Why don't you give this a listen? Why don't you look at this program? Or why don't you read this book? And so just to
Mhm.
have a community of TCKs that actually understand the fundamentals of your core when it comes to identity and understanding, the fact that you move around and the kind of things that you deal with isn't in quote normal to the
Yeah.
average person. I think that has been an incredible help. And I think for me, having such supportive friends, TCK or not, having such supportive friends who know me
Mhm.
all the way back from my college days, all the way back from my like middle school, high school, like elementary school days, just having that kind of community that really support you and are there for you have been the most amazing things that I've just encountered and have been so helpful because I honestly can't do this on my own.
Yeah.
I no one can. Like no one can walk this life on their own. And for me, it's always been the supportive community that I've had behind me that I'm able to do what I currently do now.
Yay for
Good.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're even making your own community with your podcast.
Definitely, which I'm so grateful for because like I said earlier before we like started recording, I didn't think people would read my book. I didn't think anyone would listen. And so to have people listening to my podcast and my book and just being able to create this community that we have, it's just such an honor to be holding people's stories and
Mhm.
yeah, just building relationship with other TCKs, letting them know they really aren't alone.
Yep. We feel the same way. So, our next question is what we like to call our TCK Choose Your Own Adventure question. So, what that means is you get to pick which one of these questions you want to answer. So, A, How often do you think about being or having been a TCK now, or how much does being an adult TCK affect your life now? B, what are some favorite experiences of connecting with other TCKs? Or C, do you have a favorite funny story about your time abroad or transition back that you would want to share? So which one of those do you want to answer?
I will go with B. What are some of your favorite experiences connecting with other TCKs?
Okay, awesome.
I love this because I feel like because I'm a Christian as well as like part of the diplomatic circle, like there's just overlap in so many ways. So some of my favorite experiences is basically knowing people who I know. Like for example, I got to know a TCK named Iona, and she was on my podcast a couple of months ago. And she and I connected just really well. Like, I think we were just like of the same heart. We just had similar values. And as we were talking, she remembers she had her I think it was her roommate, or somebody she knew at boarding school in Kenya, and she also knew that this friend of hers grew up in Egypt. And she brought it up with me, and she was like, "Do you happen to know so and so?" And I was like, she's like one of my bestest friends. And so just having those kinds of connections are always fun. And it makes the person so much more real, in my opinion. Like, sure, you're
Yeah.
friends and that kind of thing. But like, if you know someone that like,
Yeah,
it
you
makes the
have a
person so much more real.
yeah. Oh, that's fun.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, talk about small world.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, we could tell stories about that too. I mean, it's very special to be able to say, "Do you know somebody because you grew up in China and I was in China at this time?"
Yeah.
And we even had a guest on our show and we happened to be in China at the same time. We knew the same people, but we didn't know each other.
But you knew the same people, which is that.
We knew the same people. Yeah. All right, so here are a couple conclusion questions. We don't want to end this, but we know we have to. Everybody, if you want to hear more about Marie and what she has to say and her guests, of course, read her book and listen to her podcast. So, Marie, tell us a final story about how your time abroad continues to add value to your life now.
Oh my gosh. I really don't know how I can answer that question because I feel like every aspect of my life abroad continues to add value to my life now. I think having that wider global mindset really helps me um, build bridges between different cultures.
Mhm.
And, I remember I was grabbing dinner with a friend of mine from Korea, and I had another Filipino friend who was an exchange student, and we were all part of the same campus ministry at the same time. But she was coming to the Philippines for a wedding. So all three of us were having dinner. And for some weird reason, I felt the need to just like translate into Korean English, to like the waiter. And so the waiter was talking in Tagalog to me in Filipino. And I was speaking to my friend in Korean because I felt like I was breathing, right? And then
Uh-huh.
she was talking back to me in English and all that stuff. It was just like this really funny, just little interaction, which makes me so
Trilingual.
happy. Yeah, it just makes me so happy to know that I could just speak these languages. And yeah, I think that's one added value to my life, just being able to speak Korean, especially because it's popular. People like message me about like K-pop, and like if they're going to a concert, they want to create a poster, or they like message me. It's like, how can I say this and how can I write it in Korean on my poster? And I'm like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's a Korean drama that I have watched, and I watch it with the subtitles because I want to hear the actors' voices. But yeah, it would be fun to actually be able to understand and not just have to read the translation subtitles. So you're right.
Yay for Korean dramas.
Yes.
Okay, Marie, what is one last word of encouragement or advice that you can give to our listeners who are in the process of repatriating or thinking about their lives past or even just curious about what it's like to live abroad?
I don't think I can answer all of those questions, but one thing I can say as an encouragement to listeners is that it's okay to have different understanding of the world from your family.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with you. if you do have a different mindset, because you grew up abroad and have a very different relationship to certain countries, that's okay. You're not an alien. You have other people that are just like you that have difficulties, with cultural differences. And so just know that you're not alone. And if you want to talk and reach out, I'm here. Melissa and Tracy are here. And I'm sure they would love to just kind of make you feel like you're not alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know that TCK training, that's one of Tanya's big things too. Like we got to interview her. She was on our podcast as well. And she talked about how when she wrote her book, Misunderstood, that was her goal as well, was for people to see themselves in it and to know that they weren't alone. And it is so encouraging to hear other people sharing stories that echo parts of our hearts. And yeah, thank you, Marie, for opening up your heart and your stories for us and our listeners. And it's going to be good to share.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is an honor for us that you share your story and you trust us with your story for us to share it with others. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing what you guys do. There's a lot of work that needs to be done when it comes to spreading the word about TCKs because most people don't even know that they're third culture kids. And yeah, thank you guys for doing what you do as well.
Here's to good work, Marie.
As we land this interview, we hope that you have been inspired by Marie's TCK stories of returning to the Philippines. She has discovered that she needs to talk, whether it be processing her experiences with a counselor or through her podcast. And she is using her voice to help others know that they are not alone in their TCK experience. Through study, writing, and connecting with other TCKs, she continues to rediscover what is important to her. And whether she expresses it in Korean, English, or Tagalog, she feels as though she can breathe again. No matter what leg of the journey you're on, friends, we are so grateful you have brought us along with you.
Come back next time for an interview with Amanda Bates, an employer brand strategist, storyteller, and transitions consultant. Amanda is also the creative director of The Black Expat, which features content about Black identity and international living, and also includes the podcast Global Chatter. Amanda also happens to be a TCK who spent many of her growing up years in Cameroon.
If you're enjoying our podcast, we'd love it if you would leave us a review in your podcast app. And don't forget, you can visit our website at roundtripstories.com to see photos of our guests and to join our email list. And of course, tell your friends to travel the world with us. No passport, no packing, and no goodbyes required. Thanks so much for listening, friends. We'll see you next time.